welcome! This is going to be the first official video that I've recorded for my side channel, Nameless Reviews. This video will be edited for time, meaning all of my annoying breaths, all those ums are going to be cut out, and like any weird long pauses like that, they're going to be cut out. So the video may seem choppy, but trust me, most of the women I've spoken to, and even so, actually pretty much everybody I've ever talked to, says they like cut better than uncut. It's a lot cleaner. Wink, wink. Oh, by the way, this review is going to be spoiler heavy because I did not like this movie. But if I do a review of a movie I like, I won't give spoilers, but this one was garbage. So I'm going to spoil everything about this movie so that you don't have to watch it. You can just laugh at me losing my mind at the fucking insanity of all these plot holes and plot contrivances. Hocus Pocus 2. God, let's just dive right into this horse shit. Alright, so the movie opens up with a black crow flying over the town of Salem in the year 1662. Or 63, I don't remember or care. It's Winifred's birthday. She's turning 16, and they show her in her little house. It's that same house. That's the famous Sanderson sisters' house from the first movie. So yeah, she's turning 16, and her sisters have made her this dessert. They essentially discovered how to make Jell-O. They're like, oh, we ground up pig's hooves and added a little bit of blood and sugar, and like, ooh, it jiggles. I guess that was supposed to be funny for some reason. And their acting is just god fucking awful. Like, they're just all so over the top. Like, everybody in this movie, their acting is so hammy and overly dramatic. It's so over the top and everything. Like, oh no, I saw a squirrel. It's ridiculous. Everybody has to say F at the end of every word. They haveth, toeth, saith, etheth, aftereth, everyeth, wordeth, otherwiseth, we wonteth, knoweth, thateth, theyeth, areth, inneth, oldineth, timeth, seth, eth. On top of the overeth, hammieth, actingeth, on topeth, eth. So yeah, that's what we're starting off this movie with. It's a good start. Not really. The three witches are in their little cottage, and like it's supposed to be Winifred's birthday, but she's not having a good day. Somebody called her old, even though she's 16 and doesn't look old at all. Now all the other girls are, they're gonna have her their little complaining session, like, oh, a little pity party, like, yeah, we got called old too. And then apparently there's some reverend who runs the town who's gonna force Winifred to marry against her will. I mean, that actually is like, that's a barbaric tradition. I'm glad we don't do that anymore. Forced marriages are weird. They're having their little pity party, complaining about whatever. And outside their cottage, the entire town of Salem has swarmed in an angry mob. And they bang on the door. And then the Reverend steps forward and he threatens Winifred with... They don't really say what. It's just something bad. Like, oh, he's gonna punish her somehow if she doesn't marry against her will. She has to marry this boy, and she refuses because he isn't good looking enough. And everyone in town is all flabbergastedeth that you canteth speaketh to a man like that. And then she makes a reference to Billy Butcherson from the first movie, standing in the crowd randomly. Apparently she wants to marry him instead. They shared a kiss in the woods one time, and now they're soulmates or whatever. The angry mob swarms. And the girls make a run for it. And I guess a few minutes before, in the cottage, the sisters had gotten like a spider or some shit. It was like some weird like crab spider that they were gonna give Winifred as a gift for her birthday, I guess. They didn't really explain it. Somehow the spider ends up on the Reverend's jacket, and he freaks the fuck out, claiming that it's the work of Satan and he's being attacked by demons. And I'm like, oh god. Just that mixed with the over-hammy acting and putting F on every word. Like, it was just the silliest, dumbest slapstick, like, hysteria. Like, slapstick can be really funny if they do it well. Like, people running around and bumping into each other and, like, hurting themselves physically. But this was not done well. It was forced. And I laughed at it because of how bad it was, not because it was comedic in any way. So anyway, while the town is distracted, the girls have a chance to escape. La-di-da, they run into a magic forest. Woo! And conveniently, right at the very spot they stop running, they meet an old evil witch. Don't remember if they ever said what her name was. It doesn't matter. They don't really use names in this movie. But anyway, so the Sanderson sisters are in the middle of the woods, and this old witch appears and says, like, oh, and you're in an enchanted spot. This is a sacred altar for witches or some bullshit. This witch is really fucking creepy, let me just say. Like, she has the most over-the-top, over-hammy acting out of any character in the whole movie, and she does a bunch of other really creepy things with these young girls who, like, the actresses playing them looked like young. Like, they looked like they might have been 14, and they're supposed to be playing 16-year-olds. And I mean, like, this older actress should not have been doing that to these younger actresses, especially not on film in a children's movie. The older witch goes up to Winfred, and she starts sniffing her all hard, like, from, like, crotch to nose tip. It was very Biden-esque, if you know what I mean. It was just very pervy. Then she says that the forest makes people magic. Like, going into the woods turns you into a witch. But also that your magic activates when you turn 16 if you're already a witch. So they don't... I'm very confused at how magic works in this movie. I don't get it. The old witch then gives the three girls the evil book with the eye from the first movie, which, if you remember, was supposed to come from Satan himself, which is one of the reasons why they were villains in that movie, is because they were like devil-worshipping witches who actually got contact with the devil himself and got this book that Satan wrote. Anyway, but they don't really make a note of saying that this old evil witch is the devil. Like, they kind of go out of their way to say that she's just some random one-off witch. Like, it's not that it's the devil in female form or anything, which would have been an interesting plot point, because there's like that old saying, the devil appears as a beautiful woman, and they could have hinted like, oh hey, this is Lucifer disguised as some witch lady. But no, she's just a random witch that she just disappears after she gives him the book, and then she is never seen or heard from again in the entire movie. Yep, I don't really explain that at all. But she is there for plot contrivances and convenience. That's exactly what this old witch is for. She's basically the writers covering their ass. That's what this old witch is. Because the witch says that magic has a way of, quote, working things out and bringing people together on its own, which explains how they ended up in that spot when they ran into the woods and how all of the other coincidences happened throughout the rest of the movie. Magic. So anyway, there's this spell that, like, the Winfred opens the book, and she finds, like, she flips perfectly right to this one page. That's the spell for invincibility, the Magicus Magnificarum, or I don't fucking know how to pronounce it. I'm probably going to say it wrong several times throughout this video. And then the old witch says, you can't do that spell because the book doesn't like it. Because apparently books have opinions about what's written in them, despite the fact that what's written in the book is what makes the book a book. That's like me looking at one of my kidneys and saying, you know what, fuck this thing. You know, like, the right one just sucks. It works fine, but fuck it. The left one's cool, but fuck my right kidney. I know it's an integral, essential part of my body and I would die without it, but fuck that thing. Oh, it's so dumb. Why would a book not like what's written inside of it? And then they cut to the Sanderson sisters back in the town of Salem. They've gone back with their evil spell book, and now out of nowhere they randomly just have, all three of them have magic powers. They implied that Winfred had magic because it was her 16th birthday, and that witches get magic when they turn 16 if they already had it in them. And then I guess going to the forest, like, activated it, or they don't explain shit. But then somehow the other two sisters have magic too. Then they're all just casting spells. They cast a fire spell on the Reverend's house that burns it down. Then we flash forward to present-day Salem, where two high school girls are at school in the morning, and they're talking about their plans for Halloween. It's one of their birthdays. And then there's a third girl who used to be friends with him who isn't coming to her birthday because she's having a party of her own. Drama! And then they cut to the kids are in science class, and the teacher comes into class. He's like, alright, everybody, pop quiz. And the girl who had the crystal, she, like, knew that there was going to be a pop quiz that day. Not because she's a witch or anything, but just because she pays attention in class. I remember when I was in high school, it was pretty obvious when the teacher was going to give a fucking test or a pop quiz. Half the time they would tell you beforehand. And if you paid attention, you'd be like, oh, hey, there's going to be a pop quiz tomorrow, because he fucking said so. She, like, says something about there being a pop quiz before the teacher says it, like, before class starts. And the other kids overhear her, and then when the teacher says, hey, pop quiz, this boy sitting next to her freaks the fuck out. He's like, she's a witch, she's all the future, burn her, burn her. And the teacher's like, okay, this is stupid. You guys go to the principal's office. So they go to the principal's office, nothing important really happens, and then they cut to them after school. There's some kind of carnival in town. So while they're at the carnival after school, the mayor, who's also the father of their third friend who's kind of been, like, iced out of the group because she's dating some guy. Incidentally, it was the guy who freaked out on the girl in class. By the way, they don't ever mention the first names of these two girls, so for this entire review, I'm just going to be referring to them as the girls, or the main character girls. I'm sorry if that's confusing. I can't do any better than that. They didn't say their name. They said the name of the third girl. I think it's, like, Cassie or some shit. But never the name of the fucking two main characters. So, the girls, they're talking to the father of their other former friend, and he's all like, hey, how come I haven't seen you around in so long? You know, you guys used to be all friends, buddy. And they're kind of just ignoring him. I think this was, like, the one decently written part of the movie where it was, like, almost comical how, like, they portrayed how these two young girls are just being teenagers and just ignoring this older guy just because he's an adult. They're just like, yeah, whatever, you're an adult, whatever, bye-bye. And so they run off to some magic shop that's the former home of the Sanderson sisters. We learn that later. They don't really tell us. You kind of have to figure that out on your own, which I guess is nice. It's like they don't treat us like we're that stupid. At least in that part. They treat us like we're dumb for every other aspect of it. But anyway, so at the magic shop, the owner of the shop is giving another very over-hammy presentation. It's sort of like the scene from Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder where they basically just explain what happened in the previous movie in, like, a little play for kids. It's just an exhibition for the audience that never saw the first movie. And it's an opportunity for them to say, like, oh, hey, the black flame candle melted all the way down to the wick last time, so the Sanderson sisters can never come back. The evil book from the first movie is still there, and there's a black cat that I guess we're supposed to assume is the same cat from the first movie, but it's not. It's just a random cat. We don't ever find out what happens to him. The owner of the shop gives the one girl whose birthday it is a gift. He gives her a random candle, like, here, free gift for your birthday. They cut to the next scene. The two girls are in the woods for a birthday celebration. Apparently it's their tradition. They like to go and do seances or something on the girl's birthday because it's Halloween. I guess that makes sense. But lo and behold, and when they go into the woods, they end up right in the exact same spot from the beginning of the movie where the Sanderson sisters meet the old witch. Ooh, how convenient. They light a candle. The same candle that was given to them by the owner of the magic shop. And it just so happens to be a second black flame candle. And because I guess we're supposed to assume that this girl in the movie, she's a virgin, and when you light the black flame candle and you're a virgin, it brings the Sanderson sisters back to life. Not sure how they were brought back to life, because they were, like, turned to dust in the first movie and annihilated. But here we are. This has been enough plot contrivances as it is. What's one more? The Sanderson sisters reappear, and right when they fucking show up, they break out into full-blown Broadway-style song and dance, singing this very cringy song called The Witches Are Back. I don't know, that's not how it sounds. That's a bad imitation. I'm not even going to try to sing the song. I don't want to. It was that bad. As a song, it wasn't, like, that bad. It just didn't feel right in the movie. It was very forced, very out of place. The movie is not a musical. But the way the song presents itself, you get this feeling like, oh shit, is this just going to be a musical for the rest of this next hour and 40 minutes? Because, by the way, it's like a 2-hour movie. It's only an hour and a half of plot. The rest of it is just this overextended credits that Disney Plus does. I'm not sure why they drag that out. So after they finish their cringy song, the two main characters are about to be murdered by the Sanderson sisters, who are back to their old ways of stealing the souls of young people so they can stay young too. But the two girls come up with a clever little lie that they themselves are witches 40 years old, and they stay young because they use potions that they get at Walgreens. Walgreens definitely sponsored this movie. Heavily, because they mention Walgreens like 50 fucking times. And then, after the two girls mention Walgreens, they go to Walgreens. They spend like 15 fucking minutes in Walgreens. It's so overly gratuitous, like eating lotions and drinking shampoo. And then eventually they figure out, like, oh, the two younger girls are lying to us. And then the Sandersons start firing lightning bolts at them. Oh, God. It's unfathomable how much time they spent in Walgreens. Like, I can't imagine how much money Walgreens spent to get that amount of runtime. So, one of the girls, the one whose birthday it's not, she somehow knows that salt protects you from witch magic. So she goes over to the food section of Walgreens, gets a big thing of salt, and she makes like a little line on the ground in front of them, right when the witches are firing their lightning bolts with that dumb little finger flick. The little line of salt on the ground reflects the lightning bolt back at the witches like a Star Wars style force field. It's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. Looked like something out of a Marvel movie. Like the mixture between the lightning bolt lasers and the way the salt acted like a glowing force field. It was just weird. So our two main characters escape thanks to their force field of salt, and the Sanderson sisters proceed to chase them. They repeat the exact same joke from the first movie where the Sandersons have to use modern tools and equipment in the place of brooms in order to fly. The black-haired witch uses a couple of Roombas instead of a vacuum. Oh, hee har har. Jessica Parker. I don't know if I pronounced that right. The one with the face that looks like a foot from Sex and the City. She grabs a Swiffer. And then the red-haired witch Winfred, she grabs this really shit plastic broom from the Halloween toy section. And then they're off into the night to fly. And they fly like 50 miles over the town in search of the girls who probably were on foot, maybe only got like 2-3 blocks away. So back at the magic shop, the girls get locked in a dungeon that the owner didn't know was there because it was magically hidden, but the Sandersons knew it was there. After the girls get trapped in the dungeon, the Sandersons find a flyer in the magic shop from the mayor who is running for re-election, and they instantly notice the resemblance between him and his ancestor, because the mayor is the descendant of the Reverend. And now they're gonna go try to kill him because of, reasons, I guess. You know, your ancestor did something bad, you gotta pay for it. Oh, goody, more plot contrivances. So the spell from the beginning of the movie that the older witch told the Sanderson sisters not to use, because, it has deadly consequences. Malachi Maxima, whatever the fuck it is. It makes a witch invincible and all-powerful. Woo! So the sisters then decide out of nowhere they don't really need to use it because they're all powerful already. No one can really stand up to them. But for whatever reason, no, they need to be invincible and all-powerful. So they decide, fuck that old witch's warning. We're gonna use this spell despite the consequences. It's almost 50 minutes into the movie at this point, and something interesting finally fucking happens, sort of, when they get to this part where the Sanderson sisters are like, oh, we're gonna do this spell to make us invincible. That's the first interesting thing of note, in my opinion, that happened so far. Everything else was just dumb and pointless and unnecessary and drawn out. Like, I remember, like, as I'm writing my notes here, I realized as I was writing that's not even an interesting plot point. Here's the whole crux of the movie from here on out. In order to cast the invincibility spell, the Sanderson sisters need to gather special ingredients that are going to be hard to find. Oh no! It's not like I haven't seen that anywhere before. Every episode of Supernatural ever. Also a bunch of other fucking horror movies about witches and witchcraft like that. That's been in a lot of fucking storylines. But because the first hour of the movie was so goddamn boring. That cliche plotline was actually interesting by comparison. Let's continue. Back in the dungeon, where the two main characters are trapped, one of the girls pulls out a bag of angelica leaves. Woo! Which, quote, lifts curses, and she just happened to have that bag in her pocket. Conveniently. Oh, and lo and behold, it actually does lift the curse, because they somehow knew that they had to take the leaves, grind them up, make a perfect little circle on the ground in front of them, take out a match that they also just happened to have, light the leaves on fire, recite an incantation that they literally made up on the spot, and it breaks the curse. And then they're freed from the dungeon. The owner of the magic shop is on the side of the Sanderson sisters. He tricked the main characters into lighting the candle. Like, the candle he gave him wasn't just a birthday gift, it was the actual second black flame candle that he somehow made on his own. I guess maybe he got the instructions from the evil book that he's been holding on to. He's a fan of the Sanderson sisters. He wanted them to come back, so them coming back was like a dream come true. And then they look at him like, ooh, we can use him. So they break out this, like, magic hourglass. The hourglass represents a time limit for a task that they give him. And the task is, go gather up these ingredients so that we don't have to, because they have brooms and they can fly. And if the Sanderson sisters did it, the movie would only have lasted another 10 minutes. So, to drag this movie out, we're gonna go make this human do it, because he's, got a spell on him. So he's running around trying to find the ingredients to the spell, and one of the ingredients that they need is the head of a former lover. Ooh, I wonder who they're gonna bring out there. Billy Butcherson from the first movie, who lost his head and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they do. The owner of the magic shop ends up in the graveyard where Billy Butcherson is buried. Actually, gotta give credit to the writers again. With everything that's wrong with this movie, it was the second time where they actually did something intelligent and logical. I guess they noticed that there was a major plot hole from the first movie. Like, nobody ever removed the curse from the zombie corpse of Billy Butcherson, and he's just been alive and awake in his grave, just kind of hanging out for the last 29 years. So when the owner of the magic shop goes to dig him up, he's already ready to go. And now that I think about it, that's actually another contrived, stupid, bullshit, fucking plot convenience point, because they couldn't actually, take 5 minutes out of the run time to have the Sanderson sisters bring Billy back to life. Oh no, that would make sense. So here he's already ready to go. And then the owner of the magic shop and Billy Butcherson kind of go off on like a buddy comedy journey to go find the ingredients. It's silly. It's dumb and it's silly, just like everything else in this movie. And then at the carnival, the Sanderson sisters make their way to the center stage because they're having a costume contest for the Sanderson sisters. Apparently everybody in Salem is obsessed with them. Everybody in the town of Salem has seen the first movie because it exists in this universe. But the Sanderson sisters also exist as real characters, and people knew about them, and that they came to life 29 years ago, and people have just been obsessed with it ever since. Anyway, a costume contest. And then they lose. The original Sanderson sisters enter the contest, calling themselves the Originals. And then they lose to a trio of younger, hotter girls in, more sultry outfits. And then they get all pissed off, steal the trophy away from the younger girls, throw it at one of the judges' heads. And then they say, we're here for the mayor. I guess they need the mayor's blood for the spell. They need the blood of an enemy, and the Reverend is their enemy, so that makes the mayor their enemy because he's the descendant of the Reverend, even though the mayor never did anything to them. So after they throw the trophy at the judge's head and stomp around for a little bit, they shoo all the other participants off the stage, and then the Sandersons break out into a very cringy rendition of One Way or Another. They're singing this song, and it just drags on and on. And this is the only other song in the movie that it's not a musical. Like, they sang that one cringy song, and then the whole audience starts doing this, flash mob stomping thing that looks like it's out of Thriller, and is just even more cringy. It's so, God, I almost puked at certain... This This movie made me nauseous. So they apparently sang the song to the crowd to put a spell on them. They're repeating the same thing from the first movie. And it works! Singing this horribly cringy, bad rendition of this old song at the crowd essentially puts the entire town in a trance, which raises the question, why on earth did they have to use the invincibility spell in the first place if they could control the entire town? Like, they could brainwash the entire city to do whatever they want. No one could stop them with even before they did the spell. Why do they need the invincibility spell? Who's standing in their way at this point? I don't get it. They put a spell over the whole town to go find the mayor, because he's the only one not in attendance, and also, our two main characters, the third girl, Cassie, because she's like throwing a party at her house or so. There's like the four main key players of the movie are the only ones who weren't in attendance for that cringy song. So of course they're not under the influence of the spell. Oh, how fucking convenient. So the town does their like slow stomping, crushing walk to get the mayor. Fucking Adam Thriller. It takes 15 minutes for them to find him, because then, like, out of nowhere, the mayor shows up right back at the carnival. Like, he wasn't there for the song, but then he's there 2 minutes later. And then they have him, and then they grab him, or he runs. I don't know, I stopped paying attention at this point. Because the two main characters have escaped from their dungeon, they're now running through the streets, and they make it back to Cassie's house, where she's throwing the party. And apparently, I guess her dad found out about the party, shut it down, and that's why he wasn't there for the song. But he lives so close to the carnival that he was able to walk there and back in time for the mob to grab him. But then they don't actually grab him. I wasn't paying attention at that point. I didn't really give a shit. I'm like, I don't care anymore. We're an hour into this movie and I didn't want to finish it, but I did anyway so that you don't have to. The girls convince Cassie that there's witches chasing them, and then I don't know, then the Sanderson sisters are right there on their brooms, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, they're trying to kill us. So then they all run into the house, and they, have a little tussle with the witches, and then they trap them somehow. They pour a circle of salt on the ground, which now they know that it has to be a perfect circle, and if it's not a perfect circle, it doesn't work. So it doesn't line up with what happened 15 minutes earlier. So they pour a circle of salt on the ground, and then they, like, push the Sandersons in, or, like, trick them into jumping into the circle or some shit. And then the Sandersons are trapped inside the circle of salt. And they do more of that dumbass force field shit. Then the dad shows up back at the house, because he got away from the mob in his car, I guess. The Sanderson sisters are trapped in the garage. When the garage door opens and the dad's there with his headlights on, ready to pull in, they repeat the same joke from the first one, where the headlights from the car look like the sun and they think they're gonna die. Oh wait, no, it's just a car. And the dad gets out and he's like, what the fuck is going on here? I already shut down your party. Where did these three ladies come from? You know what? Fuck it. I've had a rough night. I'm going inside. And then he kind of just leaves for the rest of the movie, conveniently. As they're doing this back and forth with the dad, the three main character girls, let it slip that, Cassie is the daughter of the mayor. And the Sandersons are like, oh shit, we don't need the mayor. We could just steal this young girl to get her blood for the spell. So then the Roomba vacuums that the other witch was using to fly, they kind of like crawl up the street because they were following after the witches, because I guess they knew who their master was somehow. And the Roomba, creeps into the garage, sucks up the salt, and then the Sandersons are free from their salt prison. They get on their brooms and they snatch up Cassie and they fly away. They all end up in the woods again, magically, right as the owner of the magic shop has finished setting up the altar for the spell. And I'd like to point out that the altar for the spell is a very large boulder with like a little basin or bowl carved into the top. It is very obvious that the actor who's playing Billy Butcherson is sitting inside this fake plastic rock with his head sticking out a hole in the side, that they're trying to make it look like his head's sitting on the edge of the rock. The witches show up. The girls show up, conveniently, because magic brings people where they need to be. The witches begin doing their incantation to make themselves invincible. According to the book, you have to repeat the spell 7 times without fucking up in order for the spell to work. Which gives our two main character girls a shitload of time to come up with a plan to stop them. Very convenient. We find out, right as the witches are reciting their spell, that because it's the main character's 16th birthday, she's also a witch. Ooh, totally didn't see that one coming. You might not have seen it coming based on what I've said in the review, but it was painfully, painfully obvious based on what I saw in the movie. Like, they just kept hinting at it so heavy, and I'm like, yeah, she's gonna be a witch, and that's how they defeat the Sandersons. And that's what happens. She realizes that she's a witch, and then out of nowhere, she's able to shoot those lightning bolt lasers out of her finger as well. And then her and Winfred get in this, like, little Harry Potter-style battle where they're shooting lightning bolts back and forth. The Sanderson sisters get on their brooms, fly up overhead, and they keep firing back and forth, and eventually the sisters, like, start firing all at the same time, and she can't match them, she can't defend it, so she puts her hand up, and out of nowhere, she's able to create this glowing force field, like Sue Reed in the Fantastic Four. And she's, like, totally holding off all three Sanderson sisters. Eventually, their lightning bolt lasers start to melt the shield away. The other main character girl, the other second one who didn't have a name, the one with the Angelica leaves, and all the magic knowledge she just conveniently knows all this fucking magic stuff. She says to the one with the powers, magic is meant to be shared. So they hold hands and instantly become more powerful. Then the force field is reinforced, and they're able to, then the two of them are able to hold off all three of the Sanderson sisters. Ignoring the fucking plot hole of how did she know magic is meant to be shared, and why did holding hands transfer the power from the one girl with powers to the girl with no powers, ignoring that shit, let's just look at the math here. Why would two witches holding hands be able to overpower three witches who had been trained for hundreds of years? You know, were way more powerful than these two who literally just discovered that they have powers and probably don't even know how to use them. Do the writers answer this question? No, that would require some logical thinking. Something that they did not use when they wrote this. The Sanderson sisters fly away because they realize that they can't beat the main character girl with powers. They're like, you know what? We needed special ingredients and a spell book to do this invincibility spell, but fuck it, we don't need that anymore. I say we can do the spell without it. So they go back to the altar, they recite the words of the spell one time, and then it just works automatically. Then nothing happens. Nothing fucking happens. There's this big build-up to the three witches becoming invincible. And then right when they succeed in their spell, the two sister witches, whose names I don't know, they die. They slowly fade away in a sparkly dust similar to Avengers Infinity War, except it's a lot more dramatic and drawn out, and there's so much goddamn glitter that it sort of diminishes the effect of them dying. It makes it seem like a colorful event rather than a sad event. And somehow the two young girls knew that the invincibility spell would cause the two sisters to disappear, and then that Winfred would be sad about it. In any other movie, Winfred would go on a rampage because she's now invincible and she would want to get revenge for her dead sisters. Nope. In this movie, she gives up on her plans of invincibility completely, and she's just like, I want my sisters back. Well. And the two main character girls, out of nowhere, like they just know what the return spell or something like that. They just knew what it was. They had it memorized. They didn't even need, they're holding the evil book. They didn't even need to open the evil book to go to the return spell to read it. They just had it off the top of their head. And then they recite it together in unison. And then Winfred dies. She explodes in a vortex of golden glitter that was way bigger than her two sisters' dusting events. And then she's just gone. And somehow, again, the two main character girls just knew that when they recited the return spell, it wouldn't bring the other two Sandersons back. It would make Winfred go away. So this whole time, they just knew how to win. Through sheer fucking convenience. Like, there's so many, like, if Winfred had decided to attack them after she became invincible, if the Sandersons had decided they don't need to be invincible, they're already all powerful anyway, and, like, there's no one who could really stop them. If they had used any of the other kinds of magic that they had in the first movie. And then the evil book begins to cry because all the Sandersons are gone. The headless body of Billy is stumbling through the woods, and I'm just now noticing that they repeated the fucking same joke from the first movie, where Billy's headless body is fumbling around for his head. Yes, thank you for copy-pasting instead of coming up with an original new joke. That was very lazy on your part. Billy's soul is set free when it's reunited with his body. Then the guy from the magic shop apologizes to the main character girls for tricking them with the black flame candle, for plotting to bring the Sandersons back to life, helping them gather the spell ingredients, trying to kill them, all the other shit they did. And then they just forgive him. They totally just forgive the guy. And they're like, oh, shucks, people make mistakes. They didn't actually say that line, but they may as well have. He should be in jail, in my opinion, but that would require some logical thinking. The girls walk home, all friends again, and they find an opportunity to mention Walgreens. Again. 3 times. And then it fades to black and credits roll. As the credits are rolling, on the other side, they have a music video for that song, The Witches Are Back. They spent a lot of money on this music video. It was very well produced. It had high production value is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's a bad song, cheesy video, but they spent a shitload of money on it. Like, it's the Sanderson sisters in a professional recording booth doing, like, some dancing in front of the mic as they sing their vocals, and then like running around in the studio. It just, again, reminds me of like how dumb and unnecessary that song was. This movie was not a musical. This song belongs in a musical. Like, if it was in a musical, it would be fine. If it was in like the Broadway show Wicked, it would fit perfectly. In a Disney Halloween movie that's not a musical, it didn't belong. It was forced. I don't think they knew what they wanted with this movie. They wanted it to be fun and funny and zany and also have some spooky elements because it's for Halloween. It was dumb. The whole movie, all in all, it was dumb. It made me nauseous at certain points. The plot contrivances, it was just so bad. So fucking bad. If I wasn't writing this review and then recording this video right now, I wouldn't want to talk about this movie. I wouldn't want to watch it. Would not have gone out of my way to watch this movie. So you shouldn't either. I watched it, so you don't have to. Thanks for watching. See you next time.